Hello and welcome back. This is the last video for the ancient short sword, and since the last recording I have gone back into 3D Code and just tweaked up the texture just a bit, just to kind of add in a bit more interest. I say interest, sort of some more highs and lows. Got a little bit of kind of like a tiny amount of kind of wear and tear on the grip. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it, aside from the ambient occlusion, which I should have mentioned in the last tutorial, because of course these flipper things, we will eventually animate them, and they have the ambient occlusion, well, they had the ambient occlusion baked in, which you could kind of see when it animated. In fact, I've left a little bit of it there, so I did remove that from, you know, the areas that would see it as it animated. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. The only other thing that's worth mentioning is, I think I showed this in the last video, but I am using a post-processing behavior here, like for the bloom mostly. So without it, you know, it's just this, and then we get the bloom, and it's using anti-aliasing and whatnot. I'm pretty sure this is a default thing that comes with Unity. If not, it's in the package manager. But anyway, rambling on again. We're going to start this tutorial with the shader portion, because I think most people coming here to watch this particular tutorial are going to be interested in the shader more than anything else. So yeah, I mean, let's just kind of hop right into it. So we want this thing to kind of come out kind of like a lightsaber-y type thing, and it's pretty simple. So we'll come to our folder here. Let's just make a new folder, shader. And we're using Amplify Shader Editor for this. Not sure if I mentioned that at all yet. But yeah, so surface shader. Here we go. So let's maybe just call this. Should be fine. For the render type, we do want to change this to probably transparent cutout. Transparent might work the same, but for now we'll just do cutout. And I think we'll leave everything. No, wait, the cull mode, turn that to off, because we need this to be two-sided. So that will do for that. So yeah, if we just go ahead and so hold the T key and then click just to drop down a texture here, we'll just call this our diffuse, which will also act as our emission anyway. And I mean, just for now, if we just stick, let's say, RGB into there and also RGB into emission, so we're not going to do anything fancy just yet. Let's just make sure everything is a-okay. Okay, so let's come to our blade, which is this material. So we'll change this to the Polytudes tutorial. Oh my god, I said in a much earlier video that I would clean up all of this, but I didn't. So Zelda blade, everything's there. We use our albedo. Now we did have an emission texture for this, but it was essentially the same as the diffuse, or the albedo. So it no longer exists in this list. I just got rid of it. And also, as kind of a little aside, I noticed in the last video I was exporting all of my textures as TGAs, which is fine. You know, you can do that. But I usually reserve TGAs for the metallic only, because it has to have some sort of alpha channel, because it needs like two types of information, one for the metallic and one for the roughness. Whereas everything else, even with the albedo, it can use PNGs because you just need the transparency. But for the normal map, you don't need anything happening in the alpha. So yeah, I use PNGs except for the metallic. So just a side little note there, mainly because of the texture sizes. TGAs are just gargantuan, but yeah, as I say, it doesn't actually matter. So yeah, let's just make this thing. So we need the effect, so the blade has to start off invisible and then just basically come to life, and the way that we will do that is with UV coordinates. So I'll hold down the U key and I'll just click, and I'll press the P key as well, so we can actually get a preview here. And we're probably going to want the U coordinates, so it's going to go from like left to right, or right to left. No, I think it goes from left to right. Well, we'll find out in a minute. I'm going to hold the M key to get a multiply, so we'll see which way this is going. So let's just put one number there. Yeah, okay, so we're going to need a 1 minus in here, so let's just get 1 minus. And one tip that I got from someone in the comments, whose name I can't remember. I should just go and look. Hang on. Okay, yeah, I found him. And I'm probably going to say this wrong. It looks like it's ND Hexy. But yeah, he told me about this. So if you have a node and you want to put it in between two other nodes, if you just hold the Alt key while you're clicking on it, you can just hold it over and it will automatically kind of connect those through, which is pretty cool. So yeah, thank you very much for that. I like little tippy tips like that. So yeah, so this is the correct direction, and now I'm going to get down a number or a float. So I'm just going to hold the 1 key and press, and I'm not sure what number it is. Well, it'll be a slider, so it'll have a min and a max. We'll keep it at 0 for now. We'll plug that into the multiply, and for now, just to kind of get a bit of an idea as to what this will do, I'll throw this through another multiply. So come on now, slider. So as I do that, it kind of just does that, which is pretty cool. But it will go through the alpha of what we're using as well, which actually we might need to skip, but we'll see. So I'll put this into the opacity mask, and then we'll just commit that. Oh, I need to turn that float into a property actually. So we'll call this blade out. Make it a property. Okay, and so now if we come here, we have something that sort of works and sort of does not. Like, we know we're on the right lines. It's just something isn't quite right. So let's have a look here. Essentially, we're going from 0 to 1 across sort of this direction, because we're saying like to start the highest and then to the lowest, so it will eventually kind of power through. So it'll be visible on the left, and then it'll become more and more visible on the right, which is the opposite of what we see here, because this is the alpha, but that's kind of the number that we control. Because if you look here in this multiply node here, as we drag this across, it starts from the left. That's where it gets the most powerful, and then it keeps coming out and out and out. The problem is that it never actually ends. It kind of just stays alpha'd out, which is obviously not ideal, but we can fix that. If we come along here, if we introduce, we're going to use a lerp, and rather than this whole sort of, I'm not sure what to call it, equation or whatever, these nodes here, rather than using that directly as the opacity mask, we'll actually use it as the sort of the mask for the lerp between two states, and those two states will be, you know, full and not full, on or off, out or in, you know. Not sure if that makes sense. So what we can do is, for now, is just put this number in here, just to kind of drive the point home as to what's happening. We will eventually kind of make use of this stuff. Well, ish. I mean, we'll plug the first one into the A slot, the top one, and then the B, because we want it to just have the full alpha, will just be the alpha of our actual texture. And now if I just put that straight into the opacity mask instead, so now we have the full blade here, and as we scroll through, it's basically done. My only kind of issue is it ends very quickly. So it's starting at about point 0.2 or 0.3, and then it ends at 0.5, which is fine. I mean, you could just leave it there, or you can remap these to basically so that value equals 0 or 1. But for me, all I did, because it's not, you know, it's not like a big deal or anything, I just threw in a divide, and I divide this number from our float just by 2, and I use that as the alpha. It doesn't entirely fix it, but it gets it a bit closer. So if we come now to our blade, so now even at 0.75 it's still not complete, and as we kind of come up and up and up and up and up, so it does end at 1. The only problem now is it still begins at about so about 0.3ish, maybe even 0.4. Now it's a bit started. So yeah, I mean, if you wanted, you could remap these values, but for me, that will do nicely. And that's it. There's nothing else more to say about that shader. It's pretty simple. I will just I'll just call it blade shader. I mean, that's it basically. So now we will move on to the the animation of this thing. So we need it to start in like an off closed state, at which point the blade is actually down, and then it will open up. Oh, actually, I mean, I'm sure the people who were just here for the shader have already left because I just said we were done. But there is one little thing I would like to introduce, which is just emission power, basically. So we have the texture going into the emission. So I'll just get a multiply here, again holding Alt, drop that over the line, and this is a little bit messy. And that same guy, he gave me this tip: if you just click twice on connecting line point, you can actually just move them around like that, which I have not known about. So that's pretty cool. But anyway, yeah, so we'll get down this again, just a property, we'll call it emission power. Give it a default of 1 and stick that into V. So now if we just commit this, everything should stay the same. But now we have adjustable strength, which is pretty handy, and it will come in handy for the animation as well. As you may have seen from the introductory video, as it kind of comes out, it has a much stronger glow, and then it kind of comes down to the normal blade emission amount. So yeah, pretty cool. So let's close this for now because we don't need it. So let's just go straight to the animation, and there's a couple things that we kind of need to do here, because if you remember, the pivot points for our animatable bits are not where we want them to be, because they're like here. And I mean, you could of course drop this entire mesh into 3ds Max, Maya, Blender, whatever it is you use, and just reset the pivots there. And also, while you're at it, I would recommend attaching a lot of these objects together, the ones that don't move. But if that's not an option for you, you can just let's see, we'll create an empty game object, and it's gone to the 0 of this object, so it's about here. And there's nothing here, so it has the move icon, but it's just an empty object. And I'll click that button there so we can come at this from an orthographic mode, and we'll just put it as close as we can, at least into the center. I'll just call this one joint 1, and then I'll duplicate that, and again kind of as close as we can. Remember that we did roughly kind of measure this stuff in 3D code, so it should be okay. So this will just be joint 2, and so now we have joints. So we put the flipper 1 into joint 1, and it will say that it's going to break the prefab instance. It's not actually a prefab yet, so it doesn't actually matter, but either way, just hit continue, and then flipper 2 into joint 2. And so now we have new pivot points, so we can just rotate these, and it will rotate the objects exactly where we want them, which is it's pretty cool. So I'm going to close this like that, and this guy as well will be 90. Although maybe, do we want to move him up a little bit, or is it okay? Yeah, it should be fine. And the blade, of course, it will start not out. And so now what I want to do is I'll select the root of this, so like the whole thing, and I'll come up to the animation window, which if you don't already have it open, it's just this one, or just Control-6 on your keyboard, and just hit create. And you don't have to, but I'm going to make a new folder for this and just call it anims, and we'll just say Zelda sword. That'll do. So now if we have a look over here, wait, didn't I create a folder? Hang on, let me get rid of these. So it's just created these 2 files, but I could have sworn I just created a folder. So again, click this, create. That's weird. Am I in the wrong? Tutorial Zelda sword, tutorial Zelda sword. I have an anims folder here, but that doesn't exist there. That's a bit worrying. Okay, what's even crazier is that that folder does exist in the Explorer as well. It's just like, oh, there we go. Okay, well done, Unity. Clap, clap. Okay, so now we will make sure you have the object selected. So now we'll say create, and we'll go into anims, and we'll just do that again. So Zelda sword. There we go. And the thing that we named there was actually the clip name. So this will basically have the animation in it, and this is your controller, which will be applied to the object. And because we created this clip with the object selected, it automatically applied the animation controller to it. So yeah, pretty handy. And this is it's really great for sort of animating quite simple things. It's very similar to sort of any timeline that you might have in any other 3D software. So what I'm going to do is just I'll come along to, I don't know, this is like, it opens up pretty quickly, so maybe we'll just try frame 10. And I've just hit this little record button here. So basically what will happen is it will record any movement I make, but at the point in time when I make it. So I'm over here now with the joint 1 selected, and I want to rotate that by 90 degrees. So what it will do is the time that I had it on, it will create a keyframe of this being rotated at 90 degrees, and the starting point will be where it was. So, you know, pretty cool. And so at the same time, like 10 frames or so, I'll grab the other one and we'll do that. And what I will just do, just quickly, is I'll throw in, because if I were to hit play now, it's kind of hard to test because it just keeps looping these first 10 frames. So you can just come up a little bit and just add in just a keyframe. It's just, you know, it doesn't contain any new information, but it just keeps the timeline going. So now I can hit play and I can just get a look. And so yeah, I mean, that's fast enough, so I can get rid of those. Don't need them anymore. So that comes out like that, and then we want our blade, and basically as soon as these are open, we want the blade to kind of come to life a bit. And again, like, that's not going to take long at all. So, but you see now what's going to happen here is I have frame 20 selected, and I'll come up here to blade out and I'll put it all the way out, but the first frame of this will have been created at frame 0, so the blade will actually start to come out before these have finished. And I mean, to be honest, that kind of works anyway. Like, there's actually no problem with that. It's pretty snappy. But to kind of avoid that, if you don't want that frame to kind of always be created on frame 0, so if I just actually get rid of that, with the blade selected, you can just come over here to add property, and this will list like everything that is made up of your object, which is pretty cool. And so we have blade, and there's the mesh renderer, which contains all of like the material stuff, and we have here the property for blade out. I'm not sure why this window is so small, but we can just basically put that in there, so it creates a frame. So it still has a frame at frame 0, but we've also created a keyframe here at frame 10, which is also at 0. So now if we go to just frame 20 and just put that up, it won't actually start until frame 10. So that will open up and then that will come out. The other thing you could have just done, of course, is just manually move that frame, which would have been the exact same thing, and it's a lot quicker to do, but for some reason I like torturing myself with over explaining things. So anyway, let's just carry on. While we're here, we might as well work on the emission power. So we already have the blade selected still, and what I want to happen is, as this kind of comes out a bit, almost as it's like nearly done, I really want to ramp up that emission like quite high, and then when the blade is actually out, and I mean, we'll adjust the timings of this later, but we'll go to frame 30 for now. I'll put it back down to 1, and so what happens now is it kind of glows out and then something like that. And again, just going to throw down just a random keyframe, and then I hit play here. Okay, so I think for me, it's happening all a little too fast. It almost looks like the blade is kind of just popping in. I mean, it's pretty nice, but I want to adjust it just a bit. And so I think for starters, my emission might be too high. So I'll go to that frame where I'd set it to 5, which is this one right there. Maybe I just want 3 or so, maybe 4. We'll see what 3 does. And for the timing of it, maybe I don't want it to actually start so kind of hefty. In fact, let me undo that. So that stays there, So as it comes out, maybe here, we'll get this, and we'll actually force it to be a lot less, maybe even, no, we'll do 2. So it's not so like eye-popping immediately, and then as it's getting bigger, it's sort of like the full power, and then when it's done, it kind of comes back to normal. That should create a bit of a nicer effect. Yeah, that's pretty cool. And you could, of course, if you wanted, just like grab the last of these frames where everything happens. If you just wanted to like speed up, not speed up, sorry, slow down this kind of whole thing. If I just grab these 2 here. Sorry, not only those 2. In fact, this top one's redundant. We want the bit where the blade has finished, so the mesh renderer here, for the material. So we want, that's our last keyframe for that, and that's our last kind of fade. So we can just kind of move those out there. So now the blade will come out a lot slower because it's just stretched out over more frames. But yeah, that's, I mean, that's still kind of okay, but I much prefer it to be very sort of quick and snappy, because in the context of the game as well, I think as soon as you have that weapon out, you can use it. So yeah, pretty quick, pretty snappy. So yeah, I'm okay with that. So now we just need to animate the actual closing, and we'll leave a bit of a gap. And ordinarily in a game, you probably want this as a separate animation clip, so you can load up different clips depending on what's happening. But for the sake of this tutorial, we'll just do it all as one. So there's a bit of a pause there, and maybe that's actually enough of a pause. So here, so now we need to, let's see, we're at 80 here, so we'll come up to 90, because I think that our flippers was about 10 frames of animation. So we'll flip those back down, and we're going to get a problem here because the previous frame for this is all the way over here. And so this is actually going to continually, slowly go down. So we need to grab that last frame where it was out and just give that a copy, and then a paste. And then while we're here, we'll also do the same for the joint 2. So copy that and paste it over there. So now it will actually go in the time that we want it. So let's joint 1 and joint 2. Close those out. Yep, pretty cool. And so now we want the blade to, to come back in slightly before these guys close. So the blade needs to kind of be done at this point. So we'll come back like maybe 10 frames or so. Grab our the blade object, and let's just copy like the last frame that we had, and we'll paste it in there, and then we'll come here and just do blade out all the way down to 0. And so now that should oh, okay, because we copied the keyframes before, we have some extra kind of information in this material which we don't want, so we're going to get rid of that key. And so yeah, that should be it. And then I'll just create a random keyframe here, just so there's a bit of a pause at the end there, and then we can test the timing of that. Yeah, seems okay to me. And of course, because we disabled the culling, this is two-sided. So yeah, that's almost it for the animation. We are just going to do a little bit with some particles, and then we'll also add those into the timeline, and we'll also get a light in there as well, so that as this kind of this blade sort of turns on at its peak, it is actually shining, like a real blue light. But for now, let's just do the particles. So might as well create these already in here. In fact, I'm going to create an empty game object, put it there. I'll just call this effects, because we're probably going to want to use, well, we're going to put a light in here and it'll have a particle system. But so yeah, let's just chuck that in there, and that's our default particle system, which is pretty big. So let's see, I mean, we don't want this to last long, so I'll do 2 seconds on both the duration and the lifetime. We do want it to be a burst, so rather than emitting a rate over time, which we don't want, we'll create a burst. 30 is probably way too many, so let's do half that. The size obviously is gargantuan, so 1, no, 0.1. We'll probably end up going smaller, but for now I guess that's fine. Shape, we'll change this to an edge, which gives us this edge here, and we'll just kind of adjust the radius of this, just so it's roughly in line, with the blade. The other thing that we probably want to do now is, it's a bit hard to kind of test, but if I move this, you can see that the particles kind of move with it. But if this was for use in a game, like, and the character were to get their sword out, and then you had some like orbs that kind of just flew off, kind of like embers or something, you wouldn't want those to kind of rotate with the weapon. That would be kind of weird. So we'll just set the simulation mode, wherever that might be. There we go, the simulation space to world. And so now, if I just keep moving this, it doesn't matter where I move this to. Once those particles have been spawned, it's like they are on their own. You know, they do whatever they want to do, which is that's how embers and things would be in real life. The other thing, so we have a start speed, which I don't want. I'm going to get that all the way down to 0. And instead, what I'm going to do is enable velocity over time, and in the linear space here, we'll choose random between 2 constants, because we're going to kind of put in a bit of noise here. I'm not sure how much. -1. Seems a bit too much. 0.5. We'll try 0.5 for now. So what I like to do is, if I go 0.5 on one, then I go -0.5 on the opposite. So it's, you know, now you're getting some that are going left and some that are going right. And so for here, some will go up and some will go down. So 0.5 -0.5, and then again here. Okay, so that's a start. They're lasting too long, I think, so I'll bring this down to 1 and 1. Okay, that's pretty cool. Let's get some color over lifetime, and we'll just get the alpha point here, and we'll just make sure those alpha are out. Pretty cool. And the other thing, size over lifetime, we do want these to kind of just get smaller. It just kind of helps with the color over lifetime. Like, they reach a point where they're so small and then they're dead. But this will also, wait, I've said that the wrong way around. I mean that they'll alpha out and then that they'll be dead, but this will also make them smaller. So it helps the transition from alive to not alive for the particle. So that's pretty cool. We can also, I mean, let's see if we can do something with some noise. That's a bit too strong for me. So maybe we want to bring this down by like half or something, maybe more. We'll kind of just play with these until we kind of find something we like. It could take a while because it's tough to say. I mean, even at the moment, I kind of like it. So the noise, if I can get some nice noise, I'll keep it, but I'm not going to spend too long trying to do stuff if it's not working out. So I'm just going to skip through some things while I try to figure out what works best. Okay, I think that will probably do. So without the noise, it just kind of, you know, linearly, you know what I'm trying to say. It does like a constant sort of constant random, like a -0.5-ish on all 3 axes. Oh my god, I cannot talk today. Which is, it's the effect that I want, and for the noise I just wanted to have a little bit of kind of ember floatiness to it, and so that and that, I'm kind of okay with that, because in one they're just going off in these straight lines. The other one, there is a little bit of curve to it, a little bit of floaty woaty. So yeah, that's pretty cool. I still think maybe they're still a bit too big, but see, we've got them at 0.1. I'll leave them there, but there is a little trick I like to do. For the size over lifetime, you can actually go beyond what you see here. And so what I like to kind of do with this stuff, sometimes at least, if it's like a flash or a bang type thing, I'll just create a point here, and I'll just, now this comes with a warning, because after you do this and you kind of move this point up, it becomes really hard. In fact, I can never remember how I fix it, but basically now I can't grab that point, that sort of tangent again. So that's kind of where it is. I mean, you can bring it down and then do that and then bring it up, but sort of without altering other things. I'm not sure basically what to do. But yeah, anyway, so we'll have that happen. And basically what this will do is it will create these particles to be ever so slightly larger to begin with, and then they'll immediately kind of get smaller. So there's this point, there's this line here where the size is going up like that, and maybe we can try and push this a bit further. If we say broken, so now I should be able to move that independently. And let's kind of move this up here. So yeah, I mean, it is quite a subtle effect, but essentially these particles are starting a lot larger than what I've allowed them to be, and then almost immediately they are small again, kind of like an explosion of sorts, which is the effect that I want. And now obviously the color is not ideal, so let's see if we can just pick the color of the blades. Now these aren't being affected by the emission, which I find to be a bit of a shame, and so we're going to just make a material of our own. I say of our own, we'll use a Unity particle material, but I have here just a texture that's, I can't show you. If I just create a material from this, let's put that there, come on now, and then if I change this over to a particle, in fact, we might as well just use the one that I will be using. So if you go to particles, come on, where are you? Particles, and we will use the standard unlit. And so now we actually have somewhere for emission. I'll turn that off for now. So I'll drop the, oh, it's already there, sorry. For rendering mode, what do we want? Cutout, maybe transparent, or fade, or something. Fade will probably do. So this is basically what my texture is, just a sort of a star with a glow behind it. And then for emission, we'll just choose a color, something like that, and we'll leave this for now because we will apply this and then we'll make some tweaks if it doesn't quite work. So I'll call this, I'll just give it the same name, star orbs though. So we can come back to our particle system, which we should probably just rename now, actually, orbs, and just assign that material to it. And so now it's a lot more shinier, and we can just do some tweaks to the material. Not sure what that means, but fair enough. So color mode, let's see, scroll through here. So that's kind of brighter. Subtractive isn't going to do anything. And so if I were to come in here and just even increase the intensity of it, you can see what happened there is that you do get those glows. Obviously that's a bit crazy. So we'll, 2 maybe, could be fine. Yeah, they're actually more glowy than the blade, but luckily they will only last a second and then they'll die out. So so we have that now. They are done. Pretty cool. We don't want it to loop, so we'll stop that because we only want them to kind of play once. And now we need to add them to our actual animation. So let's come back up here, we'll hit record, and let's see. So we need them to kind of come to life probably about here or so. We can tweak it afterwards. And what I'm going to do to kind of get this in is, all we really need to do is set when this object is active or inactive. So I've just set it to inactive, which has created a keyframe where I want it, and at the start keyframe it's also set to active. So I'm going to basically do the opposite of that. So we don't want it to be active when it starts, and then at about frame 17 or so, but which we might change later. We will set it to active, and then we know that this will last about a second. But either way, it won't loop, so we don't have to worry too much about it. So we can even just come up to sort of the end or somewhere near the end, and then just make sure it's not active again. And then what will happen is it will loop through this, and it won't be active, and then it will be active. And if you don't do this, what will happen, at least with animations that play a few times, or if they loop, the particle system will only play once. So you need to kind of let it know that it will not be active, and then it will be active. Yeah, pretty much. So we can give this a test, but we can't test this by just playing this. Unfortunately, we have to actually test it whilst we run the app. Oh my god, I've been doing too much client work. The game, not even, just the thing. We'll just press play. And there we go. So yeah, it's kind of it. I think those are definitely a little too strong. So let's come to our star orbs. Just minus those. But yeah, I mean, I think that's it at least. Seems about right. So the only other thing we have left to do is a light, and I already have a light here that I kind of just threw in just to help with the lighting of this whole thing. But I might as well use it, so I'll just stick that into the effects, and let's see. So it has a range of 5, color is white. It's pretty default, I think, although by default they have a range of 10, but that's neither here nor there. And so what I'm going to do is I'll just hit the record again, and let's see, so that kind of comes up there. So when it's like at its brightest, we kind of want to, let's get a frame in here, and we'll change the color of this to, don't want to pick that one. So we want to make sure that this is actually kind of like a blue, strong blue, and we'll really kind of crank up that intensity. Like really crank it up, and then as it kind of fades down back to kind of nothingness, so too will we do the fading. So let's bring this intensity back down to 1 and change it to white, and so you can see that it kind of probably starts a little early, so we'll tweak that. So yeah, the light color and the light intensity, these two frames, they're starting on frame 0, so we probably want them starting at about here now. So now it stays like that, and then as soon as this kind of starts to come in, you get that blue light, and it's, you know, you can see bits of it here. If you wanted to, let's come out of that. If you wanted to move the light so it had like more of an effect, then you know, it's up to you. I kind of prefer just to have it sort of there-ish, so it just kind of shines in the areas where it should shine, and then not kind of bouncing around too much. But yeah, I think that is pretty much it, unless I'm forgetting something, as always. But yeah, I think that's about it. So I mean, to kind of end this out, what I'll probably do is just come here to animation, click on the root of this, and I'll just give this 360 rotation, and then I'll grab those rotation points, both tangents set to linear, so that should just do that. In fact, let's just make it rotate a bit slower. Oh no, wait, because that's going to mess with the loop. Yeah, if we did that, then what will happen is the animation will continue to spin around, but the actual blade opening and closing will it won't happen in this bit because it doesn't exist. So yeah, we'll put that back to roughly where it was. But yeah, that is about it. It's been a long haul. I think there's like 5 videos or something kind of covering all of this, and if you are just hopping in at the end, we did make this whole thing from scratch, you know, from the concept to the sculpt to the retopo, unwrap, bake, texture, yada 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 yada, all the way up until up until this point. So, you know, if you have been following along from the start and you have some nice results, then please share them. I would love to see what you guys are doing. And also let me know if you like the idea of kind of taking something from a game and then trying to kind of make it, because I mean, for the most part, obviously things you can just model and texture them and then it's done, and you know, that's all cool and fun, and I would still like to do that. But there are many things that kind of do stuff with shaders, this being like a perfect example. You know, it's not like a full-on shader tutorial, so like the actual kind of effects that are happening with the blade are simple enough that I don't have to spend just, you know, like days or weeks researching it and then hours recording it. It's just a little something pretty straightforward, pretty simple, and so we can focus on other bits like the actual creation of the item itself. But basically what I'm saying is, if you want me to show you how to build other stuff from games, hopefully with much better reference, because I know that quite a few of these shapes are off, but then yeah, that is something I would kind of like to do. You know, as always, whenever I'm playing games, I'm looking at stuff and I'm just thinking that's pretty cool, I kind of just want to make that. And so yeah, I just want to say thank you for watching. Even if you haven't watched all of the videos surrounding this asset and the creation of it, it doesn't matter. I love you all the same, although I love the ones more that watch everything. But yeah, I will hopefully be back again soon with some new tutorials. Tough to say at this point what it will be. Could be anything, literally anything. But yeah, if you like what you see, let me know. You know, your comments are always appreciated, even the ones that yell at me for rambling too much during the introduction of my videos. It's all appreciated, honestly. It kind of helps me. You know, I don't do this professionally or anything. I mean the recording. I do I do the actual modeling and stuff professionally, but tutorials and teaching and recording and whatnot, that's kind of, it's still a new thing for me. So this is like the longest goodbye in the history of ever. I'm gonna go, okay? Goodbye, bye bye.